Welcome to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. We got our 07 Malibu in the shop, and if you watched a prior episode, we put an ABS unit on it. Brian, I have to tell you, it's stopping on a dime, man. It stops great, not a problem. Driving it around, though, air condition problems. Blowing AC, not blowing AC, not really hot, but it's not doing what it should be doing. I know the key to diagnosing are gauges.
And that's absolutely no fun. Yeah, today's AC systems require tremendous balance, the right pressure, the right balance, all that stuff. But like any project we do here in the Tech Garage, we're going to start this one with a proper diagnostic process, and that really begins with the right set of tools like gauges that everybody should have to help us tell the story.
Absolutely. We just hooked it up to the low side and the high side, and this tells everything we need to know. And on this one here, you can see the low side. Now the low side, it's a little bit high. It's up about 50. We'll look at some good gauge readings in a minute, but that's high. And my high side, it's about normal. It's 150. So that tells me a couple of things. Number one, that tells me the compressor's working, because it almost looks like a bad compressor reading, but I'll show you that in a minute. But it's actually putting some pressure in the system, so that's all right. But the deal is the low side is actually not really pulling a vacuum. That makes me suspect a TXV. But I know what, I got that freeze spray you got there.
Yeah.
If you take that freeze spray and you freeze the top of that TXV, we should see that low side drop.
And this is liquid nitrogen, really, really cold stuff.
Yeah,
all right, here we go.
All right. Great. That's wonderful. Look at what's happening. Absolutely nothing. So what's the deal is that should drop just a little bit because you froze the top of that TXV. When you do that, bam, it should go closed. If it's going closed, that compressor should pull that into a vacuum. So I'm suspecting a bad TXV valve.
Yeah, that's the one place in the system that there could be some kind of restriction, some kind of a bottleneck. And interestingly, John didn't complain of a belt squeal or any sound, strange sounds from the compressor when he turned it on to max AC. So even though the gauge systems could be a compressor, doesn't really look like it at this point, but we need to go ahead and prove that.
Yeah, you know what? Gauge readings are key. I have a couple of gauge readings right up here on the screen, Brian.
Perfect.
And this is going to help anybody out because it doesn't help looking at the gauges unless you know what you're looking at. So right here, we actually have the average readings here. What should it be? And, you know, the systems today with the refrigerant in there should be around 30 on the low side, up to about, 175, 225 on the high side. The compressor's pushing, it's pulling it into a vacuum. Everything's good there. Now, ambient without it running should be about ambient temperature, whatever the temperature is. And that's also going to affect gauge readings. If it's cold outside, they may be a little lower. If it's hot outside, a little bit higher. Now this one, Brian, this one system's low on charge. It's pretty obvious.
Low and low. That one's pretty obvious, right? The system can't push, compressor can't push, and it can't pull to create that balance that we talked about. So low and low is pretty clear what it is.
Exactly what's going on the low side. Now, condenser airflow or overcharge. Too much refrigerant in the system. It starts to get hot in the front up here. Once it gets hot, look at, they're both going to climb up a little bit. So what's happening? The low side's high side's high. Usually a restriction of airflow in the condenser. And last but not least, almost similar to ours, Brian, is that weak compressor, man. We're talking about the low side up to 40 or 50, that's where I was, even a little bit higher. Ours was a little bit more than that. But the weak compressor can't push, so it's below 150. Ours was up there pretty good. It was pushing.
Yeah.
And with that spray, I'll tell you what, we got a TXV problem, thermostatic expansion valve.
Yeah, that certainly puts us in the right direction of pursuit of the problem. So I think what I'll do, I'll go ahead and recover the refrigerant out of this system using the Arctic Pro. If you don't have the tool to do it yourself, take it and get it done so you're doing everything by the book. That process is pretty easy. I'll get that going.
And you know what? I can simulate this problem. I got the coolest demo in the world. I got an AC system set up where you can see everything along with the H-block. We can freeze it and see what the gauge is supposed to do, so we'll know exactly what's going on with our Impala. You get started, I'll get it set up.
Awesome. So with the Arctic Pro, we're coming back into the low pressure side of the system here. Same thing, get a good fit and connection, tighten that valve back down. Now the Arctic Pro does all the hard work for us here. So we got a good fit, everything's secure. We come over and we just follow the menu prompts. In this case, it's called recycle. We're actually recovering from the system. So would you like to check the oil or just level continue? Yes, connect valves and hoses, we've done that. Now it's clearing the system out, clearing any contamination out of there that may be in the way so they can get a proper recovery. We'll follow the prompts through this system, get everything out, be ready for full-blown service. The TXV expansion valve back here on the firewall is really an H-block 1 10mm bolt. I'm going to get that out once we're recovered, and we'll be ready for the repair. So stay with us on Tech Garage, brought to you by RockAuto.com.